Thanks everybody for being here. This is Keeping Up with Office Protect, the quarterly. We've been pretty good to keeping to a quarterly so far. So the quarterly user meeting for Office Protect. Joining me today, some usual suspects and some new faces. So Matt, or by his official title, Matthew, is now responsible for, what's your official title? Product Sales Manager Security. Which means that amongst this portfolio of great security product that we have at Sherweb is Office Protect. We wanted to take the occasion of this call today to introduce him to everybody. You know Camille, the product owner for Office Protect, and I'm Guillaume Boisvert, the general manager of Office Protect. We also have a super special guest today, Stephen Tremblay, who's the official title?
Director of Customer Relations.
The Director of Customer Relationship for Arkys, a great MSP, and also a great client of Office Protect and Office Protect Alliance. He'll be joining us a little bit later today to talk about his experience with Office Protect, but since you guys are already convinced Office Protect's pretty good, we'll be talking more about his challenges at MSP, things that he's run into, tips, tricks, things like that, talk a little bit about sales as well. It'll be great. Content for today, other than our special guests, we'll be talking about new features of the product, some stuff that you were definitely expecting, some a little bit new and unexpected. We'll do a little bit of a demo. Camille will do a little bit of a demo for us. We'll talk about some upcoming feature now that we've cleared some of our backlog, and then we'll talk to Stephen for a few minutes, and then we'll keep some time for the Q&A. If you have questions, there is a box in the tool where you can input your questions. We will either take them directly during the presentation, or we will contact you directly afterwards if it doesn't fit for the group. But don't hesitate, whatever question you have, happy to have it. These meetings are meant to be quite interactive. You guys are the users of Office Protect, so your feedback is necessary. Your participation to those meetings is very valuable. Also, we're recording this presentation. If you have to leave mid, like if reality calls and there's a bit of an emergency, then don't worry, you'll get a link to the full presentation. You'll be able to catch up that way. We're not looking to make this longer than it needs to, so let's get started. I'm gonna pass it over to Camille to talk about our latest features and updates.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. So let's start with what happened in Office Protect in the last few months. First one is an update on the ConnectWise Connector. So during our last meeting, I demonstrated the user journey to connect ConnectWise with Office Protect. And we're now happy to announce that it's available to everyone. We were still in the beta phase at this point. So we've made it public recently. We had some very good feedback during the beta phase, so we've improved a lot the user experience. We've especially added a new section, the ticket creation settings section in the configuration form. So in here, you can now see your default service board. This one is configured in ConnectWise. You cannot edit it here, but you know where Office Protect will create some tickets. And you can also set the initial ticket status. So Office Protect will create tickets in this status if you want another one than the default one. So thanks everyone who participated in the beta phase. We had some very, very good feedback. We're very happy about it. So switch to the next slide. So user requested improvements. Let's start with the set section. We've improved the flag phishing email setting. This is the setting that displays a banner whenever one of the display names from your organization is used by someone external from your organization. Before, we couldn't flag the encoded display names, and now we do. So you have an example here. You have my name that can be encoded in this character string. If an email is sent to my organization with my display name that's being encoded like this, it will be now flagged. We've also, yeah, Guillaume?
I think it's worth mentioning, like, we don't sit around trying to invent new ways to protect. Well, we do sometimes, but this comes because we saw it. So one of our clients was asking us, how come this wasn't flagged? And we realized that their display name was encoded, and now it was, and that was sort of bypassing some of the detection that we have in place. So once we saw it, fixed it, and now even if people use URL encoding like that, it still detects and flags the email.
We've also changed the design in the exchange list settings. So when I talk about these settings, we have the block bad file extension, the block top spamming countries, and the only allow emails in specific languages. So you now have two lists of values with the authorized ones and the unauthorized ones. Before we had only one list, and it's way clearer now on what's authorized, what's unauthorized, to improve the user experience. If we talk about the monitor section, maybe some of you already noticed, but I think you receive way less false positive events that have Microsoft IPs on them. That's because we have improved our whitelisting algorithm to whitelist Microsoft IPs. We have, as of now, 18,000 plus new Microsoft IPs that are being whitelisted. And to give you an idea, it represents like 14%, around 14% of sign-in from an authorized country events for you. And last improvement, we have set up a new alert. It's more a distinction with the Microsoft 365 settings change outside Office Protect. We now alert on when Office Protect enforce a setting in your organization. We've done that because that way you can choose whether to be alerted or not from the monitor section, and we can provide you with more details on what we enforced and why we enforced it. So you now have, for example, the users list when we enforce, for example, the mailbox audit log setting.
Just a quick word on the Microsoft IP and the settings change. So those were two of the biggest feedbacks that we got. Honestly, for the IP address, it's the same feedback we've gotten since we've launched the product, and we've been improving all the time. This was a bit of a breakthrough, like it makes a huge difference, and we're very proud of the change. We'd love your feedback. Have you noticed fewer false positives from Microsoft IP addresses? Also, just a note, because every time we mention this, I don't know who knows and what exactly, but in 2 seconds, the reason that we don't just whitelist all Microsoft IP address is because Azure now is very much used for attacks. And the IP address of virtual machines in Azure are Microsoft IP address. And Microsoft uses the same IP ranges almost for those public VMs that could be used for attacks and for their own service that are hosted in Azure. So I think it's a good thing that Microsoft hosts their own thing in Azure. So eat your own dog food, that's important. But yeah, they don't make it easy to distinguish between the IP, the user space of the IP addresses and the service space. So we had to create our own algorithm, and we're improving it all the time. And we made a bit of a breakthrough recently. And hopefully, and that's what I'm asking for feedback, hopefully you can see the difference already.
Another user requested improvement we've done, it's in the advanced reporting section. So recently a partner came to us, he had some difficulties identifying who's covered with MFA in his organizations, how they are covered if they are, and why they're not covered if they're not. So we've improved these advanced reports. We have some other features idea for the future, but that was the quickest way to provide a solution for this purpose. So we've added some valuable data into the user MFA status report that's accessible from the advanced reporting section in the portal. We've added some data on the users. So what are the roles? What are the assigned licenses? The roles, knowing about the roles makes it easier to spot the users that can be more sensitive than the others because they have more permissions on the tenants, for example, like administrators. We've also added some authentication methods details. So in my example, if you see the first screenshot, my user is covered with a conditional access policy, but he has only password as an enrolled authentication method. That means he didn't register on any MFA authentication method. That means he's not covered. So conditional access policy is enabled, but is not covered with MFA. So this way we can spot easily who's covered, who's not covered, and you have all authentication method details on what's allowed on your tenant, and also the migration states so it's about the migration from the legacy authentication method to the modern one. So if the migration is still in progress or is in pre-migration, you can see that you can know that you still have some legacy on the authentication methods on your tenants. We've added also some conditional access policy details. So you may know that on conditional access policies, you can set up some conditions. So you can trigger MFA under conditions, just like the risk level, or only on some devices, only on some IPs. And in here, you have the distinction. So is MFA prompted each time I need to log in, or is it prompted under conditions? So that way I know whether my user is covered partially or totally with MFA. And the last thing we added in this report is the last sign-in details. So unfortunately, it's only with the Azure AD premium licenses, so you won't have the data on everyone. However, it can be very useful to verify that MFA is actually in place and that it's prompted whenever the user logs in. So it's a very nice tool to make sure everything works as expected.
It's an interesting use case because you would assume it'd be very simple to know if you've turned on MFA or not. And if everybody gets asked, like it seems like the simplest thing, you just use security default, for example. But this comes again from very real feedback from very real partners dealing with very real use cases where there's a number of little anomalies that they found, situation where either legacy MFA, like per user MFA, which is not displayed here, was interfering with new things, or security default seemed on, but it wasn't. So we're working so this is sort of the first layer of value that we can give you. So a better verification, especially like if you have access to the last sign-in details through Azure AD Premium, it really tells you like what's happening in practice instead of just theoretically. But we're working to make it a little bit more Office Protect like, which means instead of give you all the variable and the verifications and everything, like we're working to make a logic that will say, yes, they're protected or no, they're not protected. And that's our ultimate goal, is to give you a much easier way to go, this person, yes, this person, yes, this person, no, this person, yes. It requires a little bit more work because Microsoft is being very Microsoft with MFA. I know we all love Microsoft and we all wish they would improve on some aspects. That's very true of Sherweb as well. We work very closely with them. But so I'm going to play devil's advocate just a second, but so Microsoft is trying to move things forward with multi-factor authentication. They're trying to get people to use the new methods and everything. But some of the change that they're bringing are creating more chaos than good. So I'm confident that it will get resolved and simplify over time. But for now, there is a bit of a cluster where we can help you to figure it out, but it does require quite a bit of like simplifying things. If you have any comments on your reality with MFA, actually, we're going to ask you I think we have a few poll questions as well. But if you have any comments or situation that you run into that is just bizarre with MFA, love for you to share. Put it in the Q&A comments. Put it somewhere. We'd love to hear about your real life experience.
Thank you. I will go quick on these ones as I will show it to you during the demo, but we've added 2 new Sharepoint settings. We've added them to limit the data extraction risks, so data extraction from your document base in Sharepoint. So I will show you later on during the demo what are the choices and what you should do with them. And last one, I will also show it to you during the demo today, but we are happy to have the Autotask connector that's now in production too, along with the ConnectWise one. So as we did with ConnectWise, we'll go through a beta phase to get your feedback, to make sure all of the requirements are here and that all of your needs are addressed. So if you want to participate in the beta phase, feel free to contact us at feedback@Arkys Protect, and we'll be very happy to work with you as we did with ConnectWise. So let's switch to the demo. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Good. So in the set section here, you now have the Sharepoint section, and you have 2 new settings: the block guest from sharing content and disable anonymous sharing. These 2 settings are to limit the guests' rights on your Sharepoint environment. It's normal to have guests in an organization, but their rights should be restrained to what they have created, for example, in Sharepoint. So this is the first one. We recommend to enable it to block guests from sharing content they did not create, to avoid them to share your documents outside of your organization. And you have the disable anonymous sharing one. So in here you have many options. The most permissive one is the anonymous sharing. We don't recommend, of course, to set this up. The anonymous sharing can be pretty dangerous, as you cannot track who accessed your documents because they didn't log in when they accessed the content. So if you have any data extraction, it will be very hard to investigate afterwards. The second most permissive one is the all guest sharing. So all guest sharing will just ask guests to log in before they access the content, but you do not manage who can access the content. Then you have the existing guests only. So this is one of our recommendations. Existing guests only will allow people that are registered in your Azure AD repository to access the content, so you know who they are, and you said that you were okay for them to access the content. And the most restricted one is the only users in the organization. It can be pretty restrictive, even if it's very secure. So only users in the organization, we only allow sharing through your organization and no external sharing at all.
I get the question once in a while as to, well, we use anonymous sharing to share documents with a lot of people, like, why not? Like, it's not a document that I'm worried about or something like that. The idea is really that there shouldn't be things that are just left open, and SharePoint is not, well, SharePoint file sharing is not fit for purpose. Like, it's not the tool you should use to make documents publicly available. If you want to make documents publicly available, get a website, like get intranet, extranet, like things like that. Like, there are tools that are made to share documents publicly, like you can go to it and download it, but it's not share. Well, actually, SharePoint has a website feature. Use the website feature to do that. Otherwise, it's very, very hard to do data management, like data governance. And the future of security is identity and access management and data governance. And data governance is going to be the giant pain in the ass for everybody because it's a lot of work. This isn't a presentation about Copilot, but Copilot says it will do it magically. We'll see. But let's assume it won't be complete magic. That's going to be the future, where you have to know which data is valuable, who has access to it, and why all the time. So anonymous sharing just doesn't doesn't work with that philosophy. Like when you're talking about zero trust, the idea of anonymous sharing is like those two things, like they just don't go together.
As always, you have all of the documentation in our knowledge base that you can access through the help section here. And these two settings can be found in the Microsoft Admin Center in the Sharepoint one. Now let's talk about Autotask. I will show you the user journey here. So again, if you want to participate, feel free to contact us. So you have now the Autotask section in the integration section, just below the ConnectWise one. You have all of the documentation links that are here also. Please make sure that all of the requisites are okay before starting your integration. So just take a look at the documentation. So if I start my integration, I need to enter two data here, my username and my secrets. To do that, before that, in Autotask, I need to create a new API users. So what's very important here is to set up the security level. We recommend to set up a custom one, so we can access only what we need to access. That means the accounts and the tickets creation, and that's the only rights we should have in your organization.
Is the information to create the custom set of permission in the documentation?
Yeah, absolutely. So in here you enter everything that's required. You can generate the username, you can generate the secrets. So here are the two data we'll need in the form afterwards. And also very important because it won't work at all if you don't do that. You select here integration vendor, and in the list you can search for Office Protect, and you have Office Protect alerts integration here. So it will allow Autotask to know who's calling them to create some tickets. It's Office Protect, so I let them do that. So these are the only prerequisites we'll need. So let me show you what it does look like in Office Protect. I have some test data here. No. Sorry. Okay. When I click on check connection here, we'll verify that the credentials are okay, that the vendor you selected and the API user creation is okay, and that we have all of the permissions we need. When it's okay, when everything is okay with the credentials, I get redirected to the configuration form. So as with ConnectWise here, I need to select the mapping between my tenants. So all of the tenants, the active tenants I have in Office Protect with all of the accounts I have in Autotask. We set up a fuzzy matching, so you have the best results displayed on the top of the list. So for example, here, I can map my account with my tenant, and I can activate or deactivate the flow if I want Office Protect or not to create tickets for this organization. Next section is the ticket creation settings. So we had a bit of difficulties to know which are the settings that we should put here. Everything is very customizable in Autotask, so you can customize pretty much everything with all of the data you need. You can set up some dependencies between the fields. So the beta phase will help us a lot here to know more about your day-to-day and how you use Autotask and what are the fields that we should have here. All of these fields are pre-filled with the default values. So if you don't have any, the field will be empty, just like this. First one is the due date. So if you have any SLA in Autotask already, it will not be taken into consideration. So we'll create the ticket with this value, but your actual SLA will be entered on the ticket, so it will be overridden. Second, number of days, let's say 7. Priority, I can choose the priority I've set up in Autotask. So let's say hi. In the status, also I have all the values that are configured in my Autotask account, and same for ticket category. Usually in your Autotask configuration, everything relies on the ticket category. So all of the default values rely on the ticket category, and if there's something missing, you should check the ticket category. We are thinking about adding a button to create a test ticket just to make sure that the combination works well and that we can create a ticket in the environment. So this should come in the next few weeks. And the last thing I need to add here is my emergency contact email address. It will allow us to send an email whenever there's something going wrong in your integration. If we cannot create tickets anymore for one or all of your organizations, we'll send you an email asking you to take action and with all of the remediation actions you need to take. Now, if I confirm my setup, I'm redirected to the home again, and I can see that my Autotask flow is activated and empty. Something very important here, when it's the first time that you create the integration for a tenant, we will create the tickets for the security events that have been raised in the last 48 hours. So that's something you need to know. Tickets will be created taking everything that happened in the last 48 hours. Now, last thing, if I go in my ticket section in Autotask, just to show you what it does look like. If I select my accounts, for example, here I have a sign-in from an authorized country. And in the details, I have everything that's been selected in my form, the status, the priority, the right account is here, and you have all of the details you have now in the emails that Office Protect sends you with, as a title, you have the event type. You have also the links to ignore the events directly from here or to access Office Protect. We plan to display them a bit better, but we didn't find solutions as of now. So that's pretty much it for the demo. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat and I will answer.
So thank you very much, Camille. For the people that register for the beta, like when should they expect to hear back from us?
Sorry, I'm not sure I got your point.
So you asked people that are interested in the Autotask beta to contact us.
Yeah.
When should they expect to hear back from us about that? Like, when should they expect to get into the beta? How long does it take?
Oh, it will take us 5 minutes. So as soon as I see the email, I will add you to the beta phase. Yeah, sorry.
So shorter than it took to understand each other. So that's good. Okay. Again, if you have questions, comments, if these features make you think of other feature ideas, if you're like, hey, they did this, so maybe they could do that, let us know. Let us know. Like, we have plenty of things in the backlog, but whenever partners are asking for specific features, it always takes more priority than whatever we think is a good idea. Okay. Let's talk about upcoming features for just a little bit. The main thing, I think we talked about it at the last meeting, but it was in a more distant future, but now it's almost done, is a flexible ignore feature. So as a user of Office Protect, I'm sure you're familiar, when you get an alert that you don't want to get again, you click ignore, and that very specific set of condition is now ignored. So it's a sign in from an authorized country, the user, the IP address, are now ignored. We will, this is probably after the false positive for Microsoft Alert, this is probably the most requested feature from users. We will give you the ability to be a lot more flexible with what you ignore, namely the ability to put wildcard on certain specific aspect of an alert. So for example, let's say you get a sign-in from authorized country from a specific IP, but you get it for every user and you don't want it anymore. You can say, ignore this specific IP, but for all users. So wildcard user or wildcard the IP address. It will give you flexibility. We will also give you the ability, and I'm like, we're going to have great demos and everything, but I'm spoiling it all. We'll give you the ability also to put a deadline to the rules. So not a deadline, but an end date to the rule. So if somebody's on a trip to I don't know, Cancun, and you want to say for this user, ignore Mexico until this date, and then it goes away after the date, that will now be possible. So it will really help address some of the use cases that we've seen quite a bit from our partners. So for example, if you use, I don't know, a Cronus backup and their agent is logging in from Germany, then you can ignore that. Things like that. Like it will really give you more flexibility, and that's the idea. So that's the big one. It says over like RMF in the next 3 months, and it says coming soon. So Camille has forbidden me from giving a date on the ignore feature, but I don't listen to anybody really. I would say within a month, you're gonna have something to try. And if not, it's because we're late, and that sometimes happens, but I don't think so. It's pretty much done. It's in testing. Obviously, you understand that before we put a feature in your hand, we test it thoroughly. Messing with your security is never a good idea, so we take it on us to make sure everything is high quality. Next one is a big one, and that one is also a little bit in progress as well. Remediation actions on security events. So basically remediation on security events. We will give you the ability to solve issues that are raised by Office Protect a lot easier, a lot more straightforward. So for example, hey, this account is accessed from whatever. I hate naming countries because I love all countries, but right now let's go Russia. Like that's an easy one. So this account has been accessed from Russia. You will now have a button that says suspend this account. And then it will do what's needed to suspend an account. Things like that, like really simplifying the other side of the work. So far, we really stuck to detection much more than anything else. We've been asked quite a bit to make it easy to take some actions. Obviously, same thing as the rest of Office Protect. We're looking at doing like the 80% of things that are middle of the road, like the things that are most commonly done. We'll give you the ability, let's say, to suspend. We'll give you the ability to change your Office Protect settings, maybe like ignore some event, things like that. But you can do it from an event. So you have the event, you have the typical actions you would want to take. You do your work as an MSP to figure out like what you want to do, and then you click a button and it's done. That is really the goal. We have some things, Teams settings that are coming also, very requested, very popular part of Microsoft 365 ecosystem now. We already have a little bit in the detection in the monitor section, but now we'll have settings. And then MFA dashboard is a reflection of what you saw today about the new report on MFA. When I was talking about like helping you more with the use case, like less a bunch of details and then more like your use case of knowing who's protected, this will be the goal of this tool. Like it will tell you how you stand with all of your clients as far as MFA protection. I was giving a conference 2 weeks ago, and I had about 35 partners, such as you guys. Maybe not as good with security as you guys because you're using Office Protect, but actually there was a bunch of Office Protect users in there as well. But with a buying group here in Quebec, where we are from, or in Canada, and I was doing a talk about the new challenges of security, things like AI and things like that, like future looking. And I was like, well, everybody's done with MFA, right? Like we're done with MFA, we can move to something else. And so I asked like, who's 100% covered by MFA for all their users? And honestly, the answer was nobody. There was always challenges, exceptions, either systems that don't like legacy systems that don't support MFA, or clients that just don't want to pay, regardless of what they're told by their MSP. Like, so I think something like that is really like a practical step to put something in your hands to say, hey, this is our current situation with MFA. And we have a clear view of who's covered, who's not covered, and then you can take action on it. Office Protect is always targeted at giving you simple information so you can take action on it. That's going to be the goal of this feature as well. If you have questions or comments about future features, if they're not the ones that you're expecting, if you're impressed that it's at future features without stumbling, let us know. I think we're at the poll questions. Poll question number, I think somebody has to take over for me to do the poll questions, or is it me? Nope, don't have access. Okay, so you can now see the poll question. And it goes directly to that conference that I gave. Like it is very much the inspiration to this question. Actually, let's talk about the end user. Are 100% of your end users covered by some kind of MFA policy? And there could be exceptions, things like that, but at least are you conscious of how 100% of your users are configured when it comes to MFA? Give you a second to vote. Be honest. No, there's no points for BSing us. We're trying to get a clear picture of where everybody stands. All right, let's close this one. Am I supposed to close this one? Let's go to question number 2. Related question again. I swear they're not all about MFA. For the clients that have MFA, which Microsoft method or tool do you use? Do you use the old school legacy per user MFA? That's the one that was free with Microsoft 365 and could be activated per user. It's the one that's now very hard to see because it's hidden behind a number of things. Microsoft definitely prefer security default and conditional access policies. Security default is the sort of catch-all that Microsoft provided for people that don't have AD Premium, Azure Active Directory. Actually, what is it called now? Entra ID Premium. If you didn't know, Azure Active Directory name changed. It's now called Entra ID. Why? Well, because, you know, when you have a lot of marketing people, you gotta keep them busy. I think the idea mostly, if I'm not trying to be funny, is that Microsoft has a bunch of identity and access management products that have different names. And I think they wanted to bring it all back into one name and I think eventually one product. We'll see how that goes. So I'll give you a chance to finish answering. CAP is conditional access policy. I think we could have given you all the letters, but we're very frugal. Okay, everybody has a chance to answer. We'll close this one too. And I believe we have one last one that is more sales-centric. Oh, no, last one on MFA, I swear. We'll go a little bit quicker for this one. More specifically, in MFA, which authentication method for Microsoft 365 are you allowing multiple selection possible? Meaning if you allow a bunch of them, then click a bunch of them. They're very tiny for me, but I believe we have phone, so either SMS or voice, so kind of an old school way of authenticating. The authenticator, which is probably the most popular one these days. Windows allow or FIDO2, meaning like passwordless is what they call it. Do you use a third-party product? Are there a bunch of Duo users, for example, or something else? So we'll close that one, move on to the next one, because we're gonna run out of time otherwise. So this one is completely separate from MFA. Do any of you use Office Protect as a sales tool? So do you, for example, get Microsoft 365 on Sherweb and then take the information either from the vulnerability report that we send you or directly from Office Protect, the software, and use that data to present to your client to show what needs to be done and how you can be helpful and how you can increase their security? Simple yes, no question. Again, just be honest with us. And that will be the end of the poll questions for today. So the reason I was moving quickly on those last few questions is that I want to get to our guests. Stephen, are you still with us? I believe you are. Here we go. So, hi, Stephen. Very nice to see you today, to have you on the user call. First thing today that I'd love is for you to share a bit of context. So tell us about Arkys. Tell us about how you guys started, what you do, what makes you special, like sort of what's your value proposition as well. I think it's a good place to start.
Okay. Arkys was founded around in 2000, so we've been around for 23 years. We operate out of the Abitibi region in northern Quebec. Most of our clients are mining or mining adjacent companies. And we are an MSP, so we have about half of our company is operating in technical aspects of our clients' IT environment, and our second half is a software developer that we have. So we have a team of developers that work on modules for our clients, custom software, and we're working on some products of our own.
You told me that the switch from break fix to MSP was a fairly recent one. Can you tell us a little bit about like what brought that on and sort of how it impacted you?
Yes, yeah, we made the switch in 2019 because break and fix was simply not working anymore. We were overworked, and we had unpredictable revenues, so every month was a surprise. We were almost down to hoping that our customers would have problems so we could break even for the month. So when you're in that situation, it's not a good business model where you're almost hoping that things go badly. So we knew we had a big change to do. And we also had challenges with our employees where retaining talent was difficult. And so switching to a proactive method of working, less problems, less reacting to problems and more preventing them and getting in front of ahead of the curve, made sense for us, made sense for our clients, and made sense for our employees as well. And that really switched our whole company, turned our whole company around for the better. So yeah, we're really happy with that.
So you mentioned that a lot of your customers are literally mining company, and then a lot of them are adjacent to mining companies, so providers of equipment.
Providers, or yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about like when it comes to cybersecurity, maybe the difference with dealing with those two types of customers, which may seem similar, but are like there's big differences?
It's a big difference, mainly because of stockholders. When you get into the mining industry, either exploration or production, you get into the stock market. Those companies, they need people to finance their operations. And when you have shareholders, you have to report to them and you have to guarantee their investments. So they need to see something return on that. They need to see return on investment, and they're really they take risk when they invest, but they're risk averse as well. So they don't like bad surprises, and that applies to IT security, where their main value is the data that the drilling companies accumulate. So they accumulate the data, and it's with all those drilling data that they can value a deposit and a site and get a mine in operation. So if they ever lose that data, that's millions and millions of dollars that's on the line. So they react. They're very aware, and they react quickly when it comes to IT security. And on the other side, the opposite end, you have mom and shop pops that sell, that supply services or equipment to the mining companies, and they're on another completely other terrain where the conversation is low cost, very little value that's in their data. So it's another, they have security implications as well, of course, but it's not on the same level as companies that are on the stock market.
So would you say, like, so it's fairly clear that for the people that are in the mining industry, especially if they're on the stock market, they expect you to bring what's necessary as far as security, and they're very open to it. And they'll, like, if you don't propose it and offer the service, they'll be disappointed and may look for another provider. Where
Absolutely,
it's the opposite for the smaller companies, where you sort of have to convince them that it's necessary and it's something that they should do. Like, can you talk just a little bit about that? Like, I don't know that there is a secret formula to getting that done, but do you have like any insight on how you convince those people that might be a little bit more don't feel it's necessary? Basically, I think it's
the
probably
approach. Yeah, well, that is true. I mean, it's really it's an effort, it's an exercise in vulgarization of all these technical terms that we're shooting out, MFA and XDR and MDR and all that. But when I try to explain it in more accessible terms. I like to compare cybersecurity to home security. So comparing the traditional antivirus passive security that just looks at files and compares them to their database of viruses, and if it doesn't match, then it opens the door and there you go, you can do whatever you want, I'm never going to look at you again, versus proactive advanced cybersecurity that's I really like to compare it to their home security. So the normal passive is like the lock on the front door. They'll keep anybody that's walking down the street to come into their house, versus the advanced security that is a camera system that's linked, that's connected to the central alarm system that'll bring in the cops without you even having to know that somebody's in your house. So that usually that I see lights turn on when I use that analogy.
Yeah, I think speaking the language is something of a skill for anybody that's trying to sell MSP services, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. I think one of the biggest flaws of the cybersecurity industry in general is to sort of assume that they're right, like meaning that if you don't buy our product, like you're irresponsible or you don't understand and you're doing something wrong, when really it's on us to make it relatable, like clear for people, like to understand what we're talking about and how it relates to them. Like you mentioned, talking about like the relation between like physical security to cyber security makes a lot of sense. One thing that I've seen also a lot is taking inventory of what's of value for the company. Like, is the first thing is to make them understand like what is valuable within your company. And then you were talking about data when it comes to a mining company. Like, I think after that, when you say, okay, we've identified what's valuable, what are we doing to secure it? Like specifically that, like not random things and because I like buttons and lights, like I'm going to put a lot of security, but really this is what is valuable. That's what your company is. What are we doing for that specifically? I think it's very hard. Well, it should be. I know it happens, but it's generally very hard for the business people to then say, no, I don't want to take action to secure what's important to me, like what's valuable. So definitely. Time's going pretty quickly. I don't want to keep you too long. You're a Office Protect Alliance client. Like, yes. Why Alliance? Like, what drove you to take the full MDR service?
It's the 24/7 service that we're not supplying. That our employees work, 8 to 5 every day, and to save their working conditions, and we need to complement our team, our security team. We're not going to set up a whole security 24 hours a day, 7 days a week team to monitor all that. So Going with co-managed solutions makes a lot of sense for us. It really reassures my team as well as my client. Don't see it directly, but it works principally for my team and the service that we can provide to our clients through that.
Yeah, I think the idea for an MSP to build their own security operations center is not that they couldn't do it. Like I'm not challenging anybody. Like I know that if you wanted to, you could. The question is, do you want to? Like, do you want to hire, like, find people, like, even hire, like, around the sun, like, in other countries and things like that? It's a lot of work. Believe me, we're running our own security operations center. It's a lot of work. I think the economy of scale makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, we'll leave that to you guys.
Yeah. Okay. So Stephen, already to the end of our time, I want to thank you very much for participating, being a client of Office Protect as well. If anybody has any question for Stephen, let us know and we'll forward them to Stephen. I'm sure he'd like to hear from you guys. So thank you very much, Stephen.
My pleasure.
So some quick words on sales and marketing. I'm going to pass it over to our new friend, Matthew. He's actually been at Sherweb for a little bit, but now he's turning his loving gaze to Office Protect a little bit more.
Yes, thank you, Guillaume. I know we're pretty short on time here, so I'll keep this short and sweet for everybody. As Guillaume mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, I am our product sales manager for our security portfolio at Sherweb, which again, Office Protect does fall under. So I have a lot of these conversations as a holistic point of view, but also, how does Office Protect specifically complement your security stack, right? As Guillaume mentioned, I've been with Sherweb since about March, but previously to that, I've been in the channel for about 5 years. So I've specifically been in the cybersecurity space. So working with MSPs is really my day-to-day, right? Having a conversation about your security environment. I know we went through a lot of interesting topics today, updates, features, and security in general, right? Stephen just talked about the home analogy, layers of protection. So I'd be more than happy to get connected with any or all of you. Please feel free to reach out. We can do what I call as a portfolio consultation and kind of dissect some of these layers and see where we can help you out there.
So just don't be shy. So you used to work at Breach Secure Now, which is a very MSP-centric, very reputable company for security awareness training. So happy to have him with us now. But what he just mentioned, the security consultation, take advantage, I would say. I've seen some of them and they're very, it's not a big effort it's not a big lift on the partner's part, like on your part. It can go pretty quick. But the idea is just to sort of have a clear overall view of security, where you want to go, what could be the next step, what we can do for you. There's quite a bit of value that we can provide, but if you don't know what you don't know. So I would take that first step with Matthew and see what comes up. If you're all set, then great, you're all set. If not, let us help you. Let us provide some additional value as Sherweb can do.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Guillaume. And one last thing on that, since you just brought that up, the second bullet point there, the sales and marketing strategy, right? That is a big part of what we do on those calls. Stephen just touched on the challenge of having that conversation with some of your clients, right? A lot of our partners and MSPs in general face that exact obstacle of, well, how do we get our foot in the door, right? So discussing different solutions and different kind of tactics is a big part of what we do on those calls. So it's good to peel back those layers and discover what areas maybe you're not as efficient as you'd like to be in. So again, please feel free to reach out and we can get a call set up with myself and your team and your account manager, whoever's involved, and see if we can help you out.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I think Sherweb has consistently shown that it's investing when it's important to partner, and security is something that we've identified. And bring Matthew and Deanna that was here the last few calls. Deanna's still here, by the way. If you have anything with her ongoing and everything, this isn't a replacement. This is us adding more energy to the security field, and more coming. Honestly, there's big thing coming in that area as well. If you want to send me death threats, here's my email. I love to hear from you in any circumstances. But anybody that you need to talk to, anybody that was in this meeting, everybody's here. We'd love to hear from you guys. So let's leave it here. That's going to be all for today. Again, if you heard any feature that you're interested in knowing more about, you want more detail, talk to your account representative or our sales department, or email feedback@office-protect.com. We'll give you more details. We'll give you more information. We'll keep you posted if we do a beta for anything. All those things are always available to you. We love hearing from our users. It's what drives everything. We'll be back in roughly a quarter with more of the user product protect updates. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.